Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The Gemara before said that Amar Chizkiah said, Menayin, how do I know that chametz b'Pesach is asur b'hana? How do you know you're not allowed to enjoy chametz b'Pesach? You're not allowed to eat it. How do you know? Hold on a second. Okay. Hi, how are you?
Freilich Chanukah,
everybody. Chanukah. Okay, easier Gemara today. And we'll just get right to it. We're going to do Daf Chaf Beis. Okay? But today, just to review a little bit what you learned on Daf Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. I just, have the Steinsaltz Gemara, but I'll have the regular Gemara in a moment. Yep. Chizkiah said, how do I know that chametz b'Pesach is asur? You're prohibited from benefiting from chametz b'Pesach. How do I know that? Because the pasuk uses an expression, lo ye'ochel chametz. One is not permitted to eat chametz, and you're not allowed to eat chametz. But it doesn't say you should not eat. Don't have chametz eaten. Lo yehei boy heter achila. There is no permissibility of eating it. So we darshan, because the Torah used the expression lo ye'ochel, that's why it's asur b'hana. If it would just write lo yoichal, then I would only think you're not allowed to eat chametz. But now that the Torah uses the expression lo ye'ochel, it comes to tell you that it's isur hana, that you're not allowed to even have benefit from that. Because the word lo ye'ochel means that I'm not allowed to eat it, but I'm not allowed to even sell it and use the money to buy food, because that's what you normally use with, that's all benefit comes down to food. So when the Torah says lo ye'ochel, don't you have any benefit from the chametz, such as selling the chametz on Pesach and using the money to buy food. Because chametz b'Pesach is not only you're not allowed to eat the chametz, you're also not allowed to benefit from the chametz. So the Rav Chizkiah's point is, because the Torah uses the expression lo ye'ochel, upligid Rabba said that even without that, kol mokom shenemar lo yoichal, Rabba says, wherever the Torah says don't eat, lo soichal, lo soichlu, echad ichsa achilav, echad ichsa hana mashma. It doesn't matter. The Torah writes don't eat. The Torah meant always that you're not allowed to have benefit from that. And that's a very sweeping statement. Because any time the Torah says don't eat something, it means you're not allowed to, not only you're not allowed to eat it, but you're not allowed to benefit from that. Except, and here's by nevela, the Torah says you're permitted to benefit from it. The Torah says lo yisachlu kol nevela, you're not allowed to eat any nevela. The Torah gives you a permissibility for nevela, something that's not geschachten, that you're allowed to give it to a ger toshav, or sell it to a goy. Had the Torah not giving you that permission to do that, then the vela would have been asur b'hana. So Rabbi Yavo has this credible statement that says anytime the Torah writes lo yoichal, lo soichal, lo soichel, doesn't matter, don't eat, the Torah also meant that you're not allowed to benefit from. So here we are on Daf Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, and we're going to begin the Gemara. Very simple. The Gemara is going to ask a lot of questions on Rabba Bo. Masav Rabbi Yitzchak Napcha. The pasuk says, "V'harei gid hanasheh." Gid hanasheh is that is this, right? Gid hanasheh is that sciatic nerve, number 32. I don't know if you can see it on your screen so well, but this nerve over here is asur to eat that. It says, "Lo yisachlu b'nei Yisrael es gid hanasheh," and that's what you know when we slaughter an animal. The red parts, we only have this chuck, rib, brisket, plate, shank. All these are kosher. The back of the animal, we never, in the United States, it's not kosher. They sell it already to the goyish butcher house, because to clean out, it's called trebering. To be able to clean out the giddim is very difficult, a difficult process. Already hundreds of years we're not doing that. They want to bring it back. So the best part of the animal usually we don't have, and we sell it off because of this. And it's very hard to get rid of all the veins that are included in the sciatic nerve. So the Gemara says, Gid hanasheh, the Rachmana Torah says, we just had it in Parshas Vayishlach, Al kain lo yochlu B'nai Yisrael, the Torah says, don't eat as gid hanasheh. Don't eat the gid hanasheh, right? So we darshan, taima, if the taima, the cause of Utsnan, we learned in the Mishnah, Shaleach Adam Yarech Lagoy. A man is allowed to send a thigh, the back part of the animal, to a guy as a present. The gid hanasheh b'shacheh, even if the gid hanasheh is inside of it. What? And the problem is that maybe if you send him a present, this guy is going to give it to another Jew. And you're going to eventually cause another Jew to eat gid hanasheh chas v'shalom. But it's permissible to send a guy a present of gid hanasheh, because even if the yid is going to, if the guy is going to give it over to another Jew, you can tell already that the gid hanasheh is inside of it, and that next Jew number 2 is not going to eat from that gid hanasheh. Rashi says you can tell, you can really tell if it's there or not. If you took out the gid hanasheh of lav. That's what we say. So we don't worry about a yid giving a guy a gid hanasheh. But what do you see? That if you have a friend of a guy and you want to be nice to him, you're allowed to give him the gid hanasheh. But according to you, Rabbi Bahu, it says lo alkein lo yoichlu b'nei Yisrael. You're not allowed to eat it. So according to Rabbi Bahu, it's a sweeping statement that you're not allowed to not only eat it, but you're not allowed to benefit from it. So how does Rabbi Bahu resolve this difficulty of this Mishnah? So the Gemara says, Ksovar Rabbi Bahu hold kishuhutra nevela hi v'chalba v'gidab hutra. When the Torah gave you permission to benefit from a nevela, as we saw in this pasuk over here, we saw that the Torah wrote, Lo soichlu kol nevela, you're not allowed to eat any dead carcass, but you can benefit from it by giving it to a guy. So when the Torah wrote that, it also included any type of gid, any type of nerve. Not only the nevela you're allowed to benefit, chelba, the fats, gida, the nerves, hutra was also permitted. Because technically, every gid hanasheh comes, if you don't slaughter the animal correctly, is also part of a nevela. And the Torah gave specific permission to you benefiting from a nevela. So therefore, it's included in that permissibility of benefiting, just like you're allowed to benefit from a nevela. The Torah was all-inclusive that you're allowed to benefit from the gidim also as well. So the Gemara says, this would be very good, that every gid, every nerve, gives off taste. In other words, when a gid doesn't really have the taste of meat in it. And there's an opinion that holds that every nerve can give off taste of meat. And therefore it's included under the umbrella, so to speak, of nevela. It's called like the meat, just like the meat is permissible to have anah. The gidden, the nerves, which are similar to the meat because they also have a taste. Therefore, they're included under the umbrella of nevela. But that's only one opinion. That gidden don't give off taste. What could you say? Because according to this opinion, the nerve has no meat taste, and therefore, normally when something gives off meat taste, right, and it drops into a mixture, then if it's not kosher, you need 60 times more of the kosher stuff versus the other thing, versus the non-kosher. That's called only if it gives off taste. But if it's a piece of wood and it's not giving off taste, all you would need is majority. If the majority of the mixture is kosher, then you're permitted to eat it. So there's an opinion that holds that if a gid hanasheh falls into something, or any gid that's not kosher, gidin don't give off taste. And therefore you need a majority. So what you see from that opinion is that the gidin are not included in the nevela. It's not under the same umbrella as nevela. So just because nevela is permitted to have benefit from, who's to say that a gid hanasheh you can have benefit from? So the Gemara says, true, that's it. There is an opinion that holds of a gid hanasheh you can't have benefit from it. Man shemet le, who's the opinion? The Omar ein begidin noisen tam. Who is the opinion that holds that gidin don't give off taste? Rabbi Shimon. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya, we learned in a brisa, ha'oichel megid hanasheh, someone who eats from the gid hanasheh shall behema tmeya. of an animal that's tummy. For example, let's say the Gida Noshev, a horse, right? If you eat it, from the Gida Noshev Behema Tmeya, Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev Shetayim. Rabbi Yehuda says you get two averos. One, because it's a Behema Tmeya, and two, it's because of Gida Noshev. Rab Shimon Poiter. Rab Shimon says you potter. And why does Rab Shimon hold you potter? Because, look, let's read Rashi. Rab Shimon potter legamri mibhema tmeya potter. The ksava, because Rabbi Shimon holds, ein begidim benoisen tambasa. The gidim don't give off taste of meat. Umegid nami potter. From the gida nasha of a horse, you also potter. Why? When did the Torah say that you're not allowed to eat gida nasha? If you can eat the meat, then the Torah says, let's say a cow, you're not allowed to eat the gida nasha. That's what the pasuk means. Gid loy toichel, don't eat the vein, the nerve, but you could eat the meat. Aval tameya, but a tameya loy hizer al gida. You're not instructed to eat you don't get an avera for eating the gida nasha. Okay, so Rab Shimon, hochinami dasa gid Torah fil banah. According to Rabbi Shimon, you're right. Gida nasha of a tahora animal is asaba hana. So that's where Rabbi Shimon Taka would agree that it's asaba hana. Alma loy toichlu isa no mashma. And kishuhutra nevela bahana he loy hutra Rabbi Shimon v'la b'chlal nevela he. In other words, you're right. Rabbi Shimon is going to hold that when it says lo yoichlu b'nei Yisrael es gida nasha, you're not allowed to eat the gida nasha. It includes hana, because gidim are considered not nois and tam. They're not considered by like meat, and therefore they don't fall under the heter of hana of nevela, because nevela only apply the heter to benefit from only if it's meat or meat type. A gid, according to Reb Shimon, is not gid type. It's like an eitz ba'alma. It's like a piece of wood, and therefore it's also bahanoah, according to Reb Shimon. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda would hold that gida nasha is permitted to have hana, and the author of that Mishnah that says a man can send a yerech to a guy even with the gida nasha and benefit, that was going according to Rabbi Yehuda, and that's what we have a clear brisa. Let's read it inside.
Bernard, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If it says lo yachel, which means you shouldn't get hanana from chametz, what's the workaround when you sell your chametz to a guy?
Well, you're not benefiting from the guy. You're selling it before Pesach.
Okay. Oh, so during, okay.
We're talking about during Pesach. Let's say you find a donut.
Right.
You can give it to your neighbor. So according to how do you know you're not allowed to benefit from it? So Rab Chizkiah said because the Torah says lo ye ochel, a special it verbalizes the eating in a funny way. It should not be eaten by you. So in any which way, benefit, because usually when you benefit from something, you sell it, you have the money, you can buy food with it. Right, any which way that could lead to benefit, lo yechal. But Rabbi Avo says you don't need it. Anytime the Torah says lo yechal.
Right.
So we just concluded that according to the Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Gid HaNasheh, it's a machlokes, mutar bahana. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's permitted to benefit from Gid HaNasheh. Shimon says you're not permitted to benefit from Gid HaNasheh. A new question against Rabbi Abo. Again, Rabbi Abo says whenever the Torah writes don't eat, it meant that you're not allowed to benefit from. So the Gemara says V'harei dam. The Torah says don't eat blood. The Rachmanim Amat, the Torah says kol nefesh mikem, any person from you, right? Loy soichal dam, don't eat blood. Okay, fine. So you're not allowed to benefit from blood, according to Rabbi Bo. But look what they did with the blood from the Beis Hamikdash, the karbonos and everything like that they threw on the Mizbeach. You think that blood went to waste? No, they actually sold that blood. It's now we learned in a Mishnah. Mishnah says, Eilu be'eilu b'sarvu ba'ama. Whether you sprinkle on the inside Mizbeach or the outside Mizbeach, the extra, they would pour it down different holes on the Mizbeach, and it would go out through a canal. There was like a canal inside the Beis Hamikdash. There was like a water canal that moved the thing along. The Yotzin and all this blood went l'nachal Kidron, to the Kidron river or valley where outside, and it was bloody water. V'nim karnin leganonim, and the people in charge of the Beis Hamikdash would sell it to gardeners or people who have fields, lezevel for fertilizer. And if you benefit from it before you pay for it, umayalim boy. If you take from that bloody water and you benefit without paying for it, you get a big avera. You're benefiting from hegdish. You're benefiting from hegdish without paying for it. But what do you see? That blood, which you're not allowed to eat, you're allowed to use it as fertilizer. So how can blood be used as fertilizer? The Torah says lo soichal dam. Answers the Gemara. Shani dam. Dam is different. Why? The ishkish l'mayim. The Torah says dam is like water. The Torah, it says lo soichlenu al aretz. Like rak dam lo seichelu. I think this is a mistake. It says rak dam lo seichelu al aretz bishbechenu kamayim. Don't eat the blood. Spill it out like water. Oh, so the Torah says blood should be treated like water. Mayim mutar, just like water is permitted to benefit from. Avdam mutar. So also blood is permitted to benefit from. So the Gemara says, wait a second. The Ema, hold it. How do you know that? Maybe the Torah compares it to blood is kamayim hamnaschim ala gabe mizbeach, like the water that you pour on the mizbeach. During the Sukkot time, you know that you would pour a libation of water on the mizbeach. So when the Torah says don't eat blood and compares it to water, it doesn't compare it to water in a water fountain. It's comparing it to a special water that was libated on the mizbeach. And just that water, that nisach hamayim water, you're certainly not allowed to benefit from because it's kachim. So also, you're not allowed to benefit from blood. So how do you know it's comparing it to plain water? So Rabbi Bo answers, no, it says kamoyim. It says blood is like water, kamoyim, roiv mayim, like most waters. Most waters are not libation water. Most waters are drinkable water. So the Gemara challenges that. Midi roiv mayim ksiv. Does the pasuk says, don't eat blood, al aretz tishbechenu keroiv mayim. The Torah doesn't say spill it like most waters. The Torah says spill it like water. Maybe the Torah was very serious about blood and compares it to libation blood, to libation water. And just like libation water is aser because it's poured on the mizbeach, so also blood, you're not allowed to have enough from it. Ella Omar Rav Ashi says, because it says kamayim hanishpachim, like water that is spilled. Generally, water that is not holy water is spilled on the ground. V'loi kamayim hanisachim, not like water that's used for a libation. The Torah doesn't say like t'chlenu al aretz tisnechenu kamoyim. It tishbechenu kamayim. It's water that's spilled like water. Water that's spilled on the floor. That's how blood is compared to. Not like water that's placed on the mizbeach as used as a libation. So the Gemara says the ema kamayim anishpachim lifnei yadei zara. Maybe the Torah wants to compare blood like water that's spilled onto an idol. In other words, that kind of water is a type of water that's spilled, right? And it's like it's not spilled on the floor, but it's like a nisach, it's like a libation, but it's not really a libation because it's for avodah zarah, and avodah zarah is not holy. It's just the opposite. So the Gemara says no, hasanami nisach ikru. That's also called a libation because the ksiv yishtu yayet nisicham. You'll drink the wine of avodah zarah that is used as a libation. So the bottom line is, it must mean that when the Torah says, don't eat blood, spill it out like water, it means spill it out like regular water. And just like regular water, you're permitted to benefit from. That's why, so also blood you're permitted to benefit from. And getting back to there, that's why they used to sell the blood from the Beis Hamikdash to be used as fertilizer. Chaf Beis, Amid Beis. So the Gemara says, according to Chizkiah, if you think about it, Chizkiah was the one that said that just because the Torah writes loy soichal, I never think that it means Isra no. Only if it says lo ye'ochel. So according to Chizkiah, I don't need it to compare blood to water to tell me you're permitted to benefit from blood. Even if you don't compare it to water, it's certainly not Asr Bahana. Why? You're not allowed to, you're certainly permitted to benefit from. Because the Torah uses the expression, loy toichlenu, don't eat blood. So that means you're only not allowed to eat blood, but you're certainly allowed to benefit from blood. So then if that's the case, then why does the Torah, according to Chizkiah, say that blood is like water. To teach you it's mutter bahana, but I know that without that. That's the Gemara's question. Well, Chizkiah, according to Chizkiah, lamai hilchasa iskash dam lamayim. What halacha do I learn that there's a hekesh that you compare dam to water? And for the Gemara, look at Rab Chia bar Abba, to teach you the din of Rab Chia bar Abba. Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Chia bar Abba said in the name of Yochanan, how do you know that blood of the holy blood that's sprinkled on the mizbeach eina machshir? If that cannot make a food susceptible to tumah, as you know, in order to make an apple, let's say, susceptible to receive tumah, it has to have water spilled on it first. And it could be any liquid, yad shochet dam, but blood generally can be used as something to make susceptible to tumah. But blood that is designated to be sprinkled on the mizbeach, that cannot be used to be machshir, to make a food susceptible to tumah. Shenamar, because it says, "Lo toichlenu," don't eat blood. Ala aretz tishbechenu kamoyim. Blood is compared to water that you spill on water. Only blood, dam shenishbach kamayim, blood that you could spill like water, any type of blood, generally, machshir. That makes a food, that blood is a liquid, a type of liquid that can make a food susceptible to tumah. She'eina nishbach kamayim, but if it's blood that's not being spilled like water, eina machshir, will not machshir a food item. And that's why the Torah wrote that blood is compared to water to exclude blood of kachim that is not going to make a food susceptible to tumah. It gives you the exception. Most bloods make food susceptible to tumah, except the blood that you sprinkle on the mizbeach. New question. V'harei eva min achai. Eva min achai is the ksiv. It says in the pasuk, "Lo soichel hanefesh im habasa." One is not allowed to eat you take off a limb of an animal. You're not allowed to eat that piece of meat while the soul is in the piece of meat. In other words, while it's still alive, you're not allowed to eat that when it was taken off, the animal was still alive. You're not allowed to eat that aver. And that's one of the 7 mitzvahs to B'nai Noach. The Gemara says a fascinating thing. The Tanya we learned in the Brayza. Rabbi Nosson says, "Menayin, how do I know? Shelo yoshid adam koisyayin lenazir." A person's not allowed to, stick a cup of wine to a nazir. A nazir is not allowed to drink wine. How do you know you're not allowed to give him, make it easier for him to drink wine? You're tempting him to be over an avera. The aver min achai livnei noach. How do I know I'm not allowed to tempt a b'nei noach, a goy, to eat aver min achai? I have a piece of aver min achai. How do I know I'm not allowed to, stick it to him and say, why don't you have some? Talmud loiva, because the pasuk says, for a blind person, don't put a stumbling block. And that means don't try to make somebody do over an avera. So when I cause somebody else to over an avera, a Jew or a guy, I'm over this lav of lifnei iver le'sitei michshol. This is like one of the examples that they use, that when you tell somebody lashon hara, you're causing that person to believe lashon hara, and he's over the lav, not only of speaking lashon hara, but actually causing somebody else to be over an avera of accepting lashon hara. Because this lifnei iver doesn't mean exactly a blind person. You're not allowed to put a stumbling block. You're not allowed to cause somebody to do an avera. So that's what the Rab Nosson said. But you're not allowed to give it to a guy, holik klovim shari. But for a dog, you're allowed to give avim and a chai, right? Let's say you're benefiting from it. You have a dog, and you want to feed him dinner, so you've given him a piece of avim chai. That's permitted. Wait a second. According to you, Rabbi Bo, it says lo soichel hanefesh im habasa. You're not allowed to eat avim and a chai. So why am I permitted to give it to my dog? And for the Gemara, shani avim and a chai iskish ledam, because avim and a chai is a hekish to dam. Hekish means they're put in one pasuk, even though they're very different taveras, avim and a chai and blood, but they were put close together in one pasuk because the pasuk says lo soichel nefesh im habasa. Right afterward, it says rak chazak lefilti achol adam ki adam hu nefesh. Right after talking about avim and achai, the Torah says don't eat blood. So the Torah compares it to blood. And just like by blood, we just got through the discussion, blood you're permitted to benefit from. So also Avim Nechai, you're permitted to benefit from. So the Gemara challenges that. Okay, fine. That's why I need the Hekesh according to Rabba Bo. Because without the Hekesh, I would think that Avim Nechai is Asaba Hana because it says Lo Soichal. But L'Chizkiya, Lamai Hilkasa, Iskish Avim Nechai Ladam. According to Chizkiya, why does the Torah put Avim Nechai right next to Dam? Without the Hekesh, without the jointness of these two Averis, I would certainly know that Avim Nechai is permitted to benefit from because the Torah only uses the word Lo Soichal HaNefesh, don't eat it, but you're allowed to benefit from. And you have to know that a Hekesh, when the Torah joins things together, that's a Kabbalah from Har Sinai that you're supposed to learn something from it. It's not like something that you can ignore. So according to Cheskia, what do you do with it, with that Hekesh? What does that Hekesh teach you? He will tell you the Hekesh teach you Dam hu the iskis Avim Nechai, just the opposite. Blood is compared to Avim Nechai. Ma Avim Nechai also, just like taking a limb off a live animal, you're not permitted. Avdam Nechai, taking blood out of a live animal is also asr. Because I would have thought, what type of blood the Torah asks you is only blood after you slaughter an animal. That blood, as the animal is dead already or dying, then it's asr. But what happens if the animal is still alive and you just did some bloodletting? How do I know that blood is also asr on an animal? That you learn it because you compare dam to Avim Nechai. The Eza is that what type of blood what we're talking about? Zedam hakoza. That blood, a bloodletting. Shanefesh yaitziboy. That the soul of the animal sort of leaves from that. In other words, when you do some bloodletting, it's not that the first prick is asr, but after a while, some gushing blood comes out of the animal. That blood, even though the animal is still alive, that blood is asr, and if a person would eat it, would be chayav karas. But nevertheless, blood is mutar bahana, and Avim Nechai is also Avim Nechai is mutar bahana, and that's what I need the Hekesh according to Chizkiah. New Gemara, and then one more piece of Gemara. The Gemara says, "B'harei shor haniskal." You know what a shor haniskal is? A shor, an ox that killed a human being. The Torah says that the first time that ox kills a human being, you have to kill the shor, right? You have to kill the animal. What happens if the ox gets away with it? You know, the Bezdin said you should kill the animal, and the ox ended up killing 3 other times, right? And somehow it escaped death. The shor, before you get a chance to kill it, it killed another human being. So by the 3rd time, when the ox kills a human being, the owner has to pay the value of that human being. It's called koifer. The first time the shor kills a human being, the guy doesn't have to pay anything. You just kill the animal. But if the ox somehow got away with it and killed 3 human beings, then the last time you have to kill the ox and also make sure that the owner pays the value of the human being that his ox killed. But then nevertheless, the Torah says by a shor that you're supposed to stone to death. Lo ye'achel b'sorai. Here the Torah says don't eat the meat. So lo ye'achel, whether it's Chizkiah, whether it's Rabba Bo, it means you're not going to benefit from that. When you kill that ox, you can't use the carcass to feed your dogs. You're not going to benefit from it. But the Utanya, we learned in the Braisa, because the Torah says you're supposed to be stoned the shor. Of course I know it's an avela. And it's a carcass you're not allowed to eat. So why do the Torah says don't eat it? If you're stoning it, you're certainly not going to eat it. The Torah says if a guy went ahead before Bezdin had a chance to stone the shor, he made a kosher slaughter on this animal, you still can't eat the animal. Even though you made a very heksher kosher shchita, since this animal is supposed to be stoned, you can't eat it. Now here's the key of the brisa. I know you're not allowed to eat the shor haniskal. How do I know I'm not allowed to benefit from a shor haniskal? For example, taking the carcass after you stone the animal and give it to your dog. After you stone the shor, the owner of the shor, he doesn't have to pay. He's innocent. My mashma. What do you see from there? How do you see that? How do you see that you're not allowed to benefit from it? Shimon ben Zoyma Omer, it's Shimon ben Zoyma says, it's Ka'odam Sho'omer Lachaber, like a man says his friend, Yotza Pliny Nokim in a Chosav. A person walked away clean from his possessions. The Baal Ashar Naki tells you not that the owner of the Ashar is innocent. He's innocent and he's not guilty. He doesn't own it anymore. In other words, he's not allowed to benefit from that ox. So we have this extra Baal Hashar Noki to teach you that once after you stone this ox, the owner not only cannot eat it, he cannot benefit from it. So time at the cost of its only reason why you're not allowed to benefit from the ox is the cost of Rahmana Baal Hashar Noki, because it says Baal Hashar Noki. The cost of Lo Ye'echel, if it just wrote Isser, the word Lo Ye'echel, don't eat it, Isser Chila Mashma, Isser No Lo Mashma. It would only imply that you're not allowed to eat the shar, but you're not allowed to benefit. You wouldn't know that from that pasuk. That's why the Torah wrote Baal Hashar Noki. So this is a question mark against Chizkiah. It says Lo Ye'echel. So with Lo Ye'echel alone, I should know that a shar niskal you're not allowed to benefit from it. And certainly it's a question against Rababo. So why do I need Baal Hashar Noki? That's the question. So the Gemara says, Chizkiah will tell you, La'olam, really, Lo Ye'echel, the pasuk Lo Ye'echel will teach you Issa Hachila, the Issa Hana Bashra. It will teach you Issa Hachila and Issa Hana. Both Chizkiah and Rababo would say that the word Lo Ye'echel would teach you not allowed to benefit from it. So what do you need Baal Hashar Noki teaching you? Baal Hashar Noki, the word Baal Hashar teaches you La'nos Oirei Hudasa. Teaches you not allowed to even benefit from the skins. From Lo Ye'echel means you're not allowed to benefit from the meat of the basar. But how do you know you're not allowed to even benefit from the skins? The skin of the animal, the hides of the animal, that you know from Baal Hashar Noki. Now, the Itzrach, because I would have thought, I would have thought, Lo Yachas B'sarei, it says don't eat the meat, Ksiv, that's the clear, what's written in the pasuk. B'sarei, only the meat, and you're not allowed to eat. Oirei Loi, the skins, it was not included into the Lo Ye'echel. Maybe you are permitted to eat and benefit from the skins. Kamash Malon, that's why I need Baal Hashar Noki to teach you that the skins of the animal, the hides of this animal, you're not allowed to benefit of the Shar Hadiska. So the Gemara says, L'hanach Tanoi, the Bapket Leila Haikra L'Drosh Achrina, L'Chatzi Koife Ulutmei V'Loders, Hanois Oire Benolu. There's another opinion that says that the Baal Hashar Noki teaches you another limit. Either it could teach you something else. It could teach you, Baal Hashar Noki teaches you that the first time the animal kills a human being, we don't require the owner of the animal to pay half the value of the human being that got killed. Because we know that if the ox damages for the first time, the owner of the animal pays half the damages. So I would think that he would pay, if the animal kills somebody, you pay half the value of that human being, just like any Tom pays that. So Baal Hashar Noki means he's totally innocent. He doesn't have to pay Chatzi Kofer. So that's another thing you could learn from Baal Hashar Noki. Or you could learn from it that Baal Hashar Noki, that he doesn't, let's say the ox killed a woman who was pregnant, right? You don't have to pay the value of the fetus inside of her. If a human being kills, or by accident kills a woman that's pregnant, or kills the baby inside the stomach, then he would have to pay what's called the Mei Velodis, the value of the babies. An animal does not have to pay the value of the babies. That's what the Petura Baal Hashar Noki. The owner of the animal is innocent. He doesn't have to pay the Mei Velodis. So we have two other Lamudim possibly to learn from Baal Hashar Noki, Chatzi Kofer, or the Mei Velodis. So then, if that's the case, then how would I know, according to that opinion, how do we know Hanos Oiri Menolai? How do you know Lanala benefit from the skins? I'm using Baal Hashar Noki for something else. And for the Gemara, he'll learn it from the S Basari. It says the word S. S means S Atafala Basari. It comes to conclude that something that is minority to the meat is also included in the Isser of benefiting or in eating from. And that means the skin. So the extra word S is for ladrasha. The idach. What about the other man, the Omar, that uses that use Baal Hashar Noki for the skins? How come he doesn't darshan it from the S? Because S like darshan. S is never an extra word. How do you know who's this machlekes? Either the word when the Torah uses the word S, is it an extra word or not an extra word? That's a machlokes in the Gemara. Get the Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Shimon ha'maisoni v'amri lo Nehemiah ha'maisoni. Shimon from Amson or Nehemiah. Some say it's like this. He was a big Tana, and what he used to do, he had a drasha for kol esem shematorah. He had an explanation and understanding, a new halacha from every es that the Torah wrote, except Kevan Shegia, when he reached the pasuk, Es Hashem lekechatira, you're supposed to be afraid of God. Perish. He stopped. He said, wait a second, the es cannot teach me that I'm supposed to be afraid of something just like God. Torah only means God, and you're supposed to be afraid of. Not es, somebody else, can't mean a human being or anything comparable to God. So he realized the es are just extra in the Torah, but not meant to teach you anything. So Perish, he stopped darshaning all the essence of the Torah. He realized he made a mistake. So his Talmidim asked him a question. We just spent a whole time in your yeshiva, and every shir that you gave was a drush on an S. And now you're telling us you made all mistakes. Rebbe, kol esim shedarashta helem, all the esim that you made new halachas from, ma tehelem, what's going to be with it? Do they fall out the window? Yes. Yes. Just like I got reward on making drushes, trying to figure out what the S's stand for, I'll accept reward on stopping because I realized I made a mistake. The Torah wrote S, it doesn't teach you anything. And that's what he says. The humility of him. He had this whole system of darshaning every S, and then he realized that one is not going to be able to have a drasha for it. Then he realized everything else that he drashed for doesn't count. And the S's are just extra words that the Torah put in. That was Shimon's opinion. So then not everybody darshans S's. Rabbi Akiva had an explanation of this pasuk, Es Hashem lekechatira. And he made a drasha, Es Hashem lekechatira, the rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. It's to be marber a Talmud Chacham. Rashi explains that you're supposed to fear God, but and this Talmud Chacham refers to your Rabbi Muvak. It doesn't refer to every Talmud Chacham. It means your Rebbe, the one that taught you most of your Torah, that person you have to fear. Because Rashi says, have the fear of heaven like you have the fear of Shemayim. And just like when you have fear of Shemayim, you always imagine God is watching over you and you have fear of the awesomeness of God. You should have that type of similar fear of your Rebbe, that he's always watching you, and that whatever, he's the one that taught you Torah, you should have a certain kind of awesome respect for him. And that's what he darshan from the S. And so according to Rabbi Akiva, every S has a reason for it. And therefore, that was that opinion, that darshan, lo ya'achal es basari, to include the skins. But the other man, the Omar, did not darshan S, and he learned skins from Ubal Ashar Naki. Okay, this is where we'll stop over here. We're in the middle of this sugya, but you'll see that this sugya on Chaf Beis Amid Beis will continue back and forth, trying to figure out everything of all these people, where the loy soichel means echad isar nor, echad isar achila, and something like that, to resolve what Rav Avo and what Chizkiah said.
Shkoyach.
Okay, very good. Onward, Freilich and Chanukah.
Freilich Chanukah to everybody.